Oh my god, guys! Two Shankses. How do we know which one is the real one? I need to have a scene in this story where Luffy has a gun. I know we don't see Luffy using guns very often, but we need to have a scene with Luffy holding a gun, and then we have Shamrock and we have Shanks trying to convince him on which one to shoot, and Luffy is just like, I don't know who to shoot. For added bonuses, maybe we could have Shamrock slowly become more like Shanks. Like at some point, Shamrock loses an arm. At some point, Shamrock cuts his hair and he gets the scar, and then you genuinely cannot tell which one is the other one. Dude, either by accident, just in the course of a fight, he loses an arm, or, here's a question, if there was ever a moment where Shamrock had to infiltrate and had to actually pretend to be Shanks, if Garling gave him the order of like, all right, son, you're going to have to lose your arm, would Shamrock go ahead and do it? Because he's the supreme commander of the Gods Knights. He's like this dedicated soldier in the world government. If his father, if a member of the Gorosei gives him the order to slice off his arm and give him the scar and cut his hair, he might be like, all right, that's my duty. That's what I got to do. All hail Imu-sama, or whatever. And then he does it. And then we genuinely cannot tell. I don't know. Okay, I want to start this off with this comment because I laughed really hard at this. This is probably my favorite comment from the whole Shamrock situation we have here. In hindsight, Shanks' family being Irish should have been obvious. The guy has red hair and he loves to drink, and his name is Shamrock. So it's like, okay, yeah, that's obvious. I've also been seeing a lot of comments about the 4Kids dub of One Piece. They gave Shanks, I always assumed it was kind of like a Cockney sort of accent that they gave him, but I guess it could be interpreted as like I don't think it was Irish. I think it was like Cockney English kind of thing they were trying to give him. I'm not really sure. But at any rate, this whole thing is funny because nobody anticipated this dude's name to be Shamrock. All right, it actually kind of sounds a little goofy. I'm getting used to it, but like initially when I read the spoilers for this, I was like, is this like, are they messing with us? Is his name actually Shamrock? Because I don't know, like immediately as an American, as soon as I hear Shamrock, I immediately think of the Shamrock Shake from McDonald's. Like that's the first thing I think of because of course McDonald's is the true image of America, and they have an item called the Shamrock Shake that's available actually pretty soon, like February, March is when they get it in. The title of this chapter, 1136, was Shamrock Takes the Stage or Shamrock Appears. Shamrock is in the title of this chapter. What's fascinating to me, Shamrock really doesn't do anything in this chapter other than just stand up and look kind of cool. You know what I mean? So honestly, maybe I'm thinking too much into it, but considering we had that double page spread a few months back with the 12 individuals when, they were talking over Vegapunk's message of like, oh, somebody's out there is going to find the One Piece. Who's it going to be? And then Oda draws those 12 characters. You got the 4 emperors, you got Emu there, you got Kuzan, you got Kobe, and then you also had shadowy individual who is more than likely Shamrock. Okay, and now Shamrock takes the stage. I might be going a little bit too far with it, but I'm going to say that, like, Oda has plans for this guy, all right? This is not going to just be some kind of thing where I'm evil Shanks, and then eventually good Shanks has to fight him. I mean, that is totally going to happen. I've been seeing a lot of stuff about this. I've been seeing Shanks has to fight him for obvious reasons. Luffy has to fight him for obvious reasons. Mihawk has to fight him. The last time I had a good, solid fight with Shanks is back when he had 2 arms. Now he lost an arm, and he's just not going to be as strong as he used to be anymore. Still, I feel like Mihawk should give, Shanks a shot and just be like, you know what, let's see how you can fight with just 1 arm. Let's see. I think Mihawk would be surprised by this. But now we have Shamrock. Mihawk's dreams have been answered every night for like the last 15, 20 years, somewhere around that area. Ever since their last duel, Mihawk has been falling asleep every night like, please, gods of the sea, have Shanks's arm be regrown. I want to fight my friend again. And his prayers were finally answered. We finally have, he's like, Shanks' brother, Shamrock, shows up. We don't know if it's Shanks' brother yet. I was a little bit, I jumped the gun on that one. I erroneously said it was confirmed. It was not. We'll get back to that in a moment. But, dude, the look on Mihawk's face when Shamrock finally shows up in front of him, his facial expression probably isn't going to change very much, but inside, it's going to be like an early 2000s, like Avril Lavigne pop song or something. Finally! Oh, and he takes out Yoru, and he jumps in, and he clashes with Shamrock, and Shamrock takes out his sword, which looks remarkably like Shanks' sword. It's really eerie how similar the swords are, all right? Because Shamrock and Ace's Griffin, as well as Roger's Ace, they all look pretty much the same. Garling's is a little bit similar, but the guard of it, or this little part right here, is like more rectangular rather than like curved like this, right? What is this thing called? What is a hand guard? I don't know what this thing is called right here, but like Garling's is shaped a little differently. Mihawk versus Shamrock, we could have that. There's also a crazy theory out there. It might not be that crazy. I've been seeing it around a little bit, that Shamrock is Bonney's dad. As in biologically her dad. We all know Kuma is well and truly Bonney's father. Kuma was the MVP. He was the stepdad that stepped up. But no, I mean, Ginny was taken to Marijois 14 years ago, coincidentally the same year that King Harald was killed. Don't know if that is connected to anything, but that was the year Ginny was taken to Marijois. Bonney was born 2 years later. And we don't know the whole situation behind that other than what Saturn says, where Saturn was like, yeah, there was a certain celestial dragon that was, attracted to Ginny and wanted her. And so that's why she was kidnapped and taken back. So we don't know who that celestial dragon was. We thought it was Saturn for a while, but it wasn't him. And apparently after that celestial dragon got tired of Ginny is when Saturn did all the experimentation on her, and that led to the Sapphire Scales, which was a genetic disorder that got passed down to Bonney, and then Bonney had to be cured by Vegapunk, and we all know how that goes with the flashback there during Egghead, okay? So, I mean, we got introduced to Shamrock in the last chapter, and it's like a big deal. Shamrock takes the stage, and he's the character in that cover page. It's like, this guy's gonna be a big deal. So it's not completely ridiculous that he was the celestial dragon that wanted Ginny, forced her into slavery, and then you have Bonney being born later. And in that case, we could have Bonney maybe teaming up with Kuma after he's been repaired by Lilith, and then they could fight against Shamrock. So the options are here, you know what I mean? We have some options for some really cool battles at some point here with Shamrock. But I think we're not even there yet. We got a lot of other stuff to learn about this guy first. So is he Shanks' brother? I mean, like, personally, like 95% he's Shanks' brother. You might be asking, well, clearly he's Shanks' brother. I mean, how else, like obviously, how else do you explain the similarity? Well, it's One Piece. You can't exactly rule out cloning. You know what I mean? So technically speaking, brothers in the sense that, let's say, Garling took his lineage factor, his DNA, gave it to Saturn or gave it to somebody that, remember, Saturn was a little bit of a scientist himself. Right? Or maybe even Mads back in the day. Who knows? Right? And then, like Judge or, Caesar especially would not be against, like, doing some cloning tech. You know what I mean? It's just like that. They're mad scientists. That's what they do. So it is not completely impossible. In fact, here's an idea, okay? Because we don't know anything about Shamrock, how old he is or anything like that. He looks about the same age as Shanks. Shanks is 39 right now. Shanks was born a year before God Valley. And the story there is that after the God Valley incident, Roger's crew took a bunch of treasure from the island, and they were sailing away, and they opened up a treasure chest, and 1-year-old baby Shanks was in the treasure chest. And Roger and Rayleigh decided to adopt him and be his dads, which was great, and that's how Shanks was raised. Now, you could just assume that Garling had 2 children at that time. Like, Shanks is a twin, Shamrock and Shanks were born at the same time. That is so hard for me to say. I'm going to mess that up so many times because I want to say Shamrock Shake instead of Shamrock Shanks. That's okay, whatever. Anyway, so you could just have two children there raised in different environments. That's the one, I think that's the most obvious, and you could go like a nature versus nurture argument there. You know, you could have Shanks being raised by Roger as a pirate and getting a whole different a sense of like morals and like a code of ethics. You know, they're pirates, but they still have a code of ethics, okay? I'm pretty sure Roger was not going around just wantonly slaughtering innocent civilians in the streets and burning entire countries down, okay? It's not how Roger rolled. So he's learning that kind of way of living. And then meanwhile, Shamrock is still back at Marijois being instructed to be a celestial dragon, eventually to be raised to become a god's knight. All right, so I'm sure that kind of, you know, training is more severe than just being a regular run-of-the-mill celestial dragon where you just live in luxury all day. You were being, you know, taught, like, all these fighting techniques and sword techniques and stuff. I don't think Shamrock has a devil fruit. I would prefer if he did not. Kind of the same deal with Shanks. Or, I mean, like, we could give him a devil fruit for the idea of, like, Shanks does not have a devil fruit and he's so crazy strong. Shamrock does have a devil fruit and he's also really strong, but ultimately Shanks is stronger, you know, without the power. Like that would actually be a cool way to twist it. So you could just say they were twins, separated at the God Valley incident, and what happened there. Or other direction, Garling only had one child. 39 years ago, he had Shanks, okay? And Shanks was taken by Roger at God Valley 38 years ago, so Garling was like, I want another child. Now that could be like, well, they just have another child, whoever Garling's wife was at the time. They just have another child, same mother, so they look similar. It is possible to do that. Or he's like, no, I want a clone. And so Shamrock could be Shanks' evil clone. And there might be a difference in age there. It might be like Shanks is 39, Shamrock is 38, 37. It wouldn't be enough of a difference you couldn't tell, but there's a big deal there. Also, we are going along with the Ginny theory, that Shamrock was the celestial dragon that wanted Ginny. That was 14 years ago, so 39. He would have been like in his mid-20s at the time. That could work easily. That would also make Bonney Shanks' niece, I guess. Yeah. But we're not going along with, like, blood relations too much in One Piece. The overall theme that Oda definitely goes with is, like, found families, inherited families, like the inherited will and everything like that. Like, who do you want to be your family is the idea, okay? Bonney is still around. I mean, she's still here in Elbaf. She's no longer with the Straw Hats. She's over in the Warrior Spring with Lilith, as Lilith is working on her citizenship papers, I guess. But, yeah, there's totally a possibility at some point Shamrock's going to meet Bonney and, like, probably not even recognize her. Like, I don't think he would, especially if he's going along with the same logic of other celestial dragons. Like, he doesn't really probably give a shit, honestly. So if he does recognize her, it'd be like, oh, that's right, you, the one that got the sapphire scales and, you know, left or was discarded. Because no, Ginny did not escape Marijois. They kicked her out because she was infected with that disease. So they kicked her out, and then she wandered back into the South Blue, and then she died. So maybe Shamrock kind of remembers that. But given the way that celestial dragons are, that was probably like 7 wives ago from Shamrock's perspective, the way the celestial dragons roll, right? Okay, so here's something. And this is something that Oda can play with crazy now because there's two characters that look extremely identical. There's no way you could tell them apart. So we have that scene going back to Reverie. You know, I've brought this up a couple of times because it's been relevant. But we go back to that scene where Shanks, or possibly Shamrock, is meeting with the Gorosei. And they're wearing the cloak, and they sit down. And, you know, some of the Gorosei, I think Top Man was like, oh, you've come a long way for this. Or, we don't usually do this, but we're making an exception for you, kind of thing, right? And then you see a shot of the side of the face of this individual. And it's not the side with the scar, and we also can't really tell if they're wearing a cloak, so you can't really tell if they have an arm or not. So it's like, or they have 2 arms. So it's like, was that Shanks or was that Shamrock? And the kicker is, we still don't know. We still don't know. You want to assume it's Shamrock, because that would make the most sense for him to be in Marijois already, and he's there. He's a God's Knight, right? And he's wearing the cloak here at Elbaf, and he was wearing the cloak there at Reverie. So it's like, oh, that was clearly Shamrock. Yeah, I would say there's about a 50% chance that it was Shamrock. The other 50% chance is it was Shanks, and Oda's just messing with us. Oda is there like, oh yeah, we originally thought that person meeting with the Gorosei was clearly Shanks, because who else could it be? Oh, Shanks has a twin or an evil clone that looks pretty much exactly like him. Ah, that's who it was the whole time. You don't know that. You don't know that. The conversation that the Gorosei had with that person still bugs the shit out of me, because the conversation basically goes like, we don't usually do this, but considering your position, we'll allow you to have a meeting with you. That could literally apply to both of them. Literally both of them. They have a high position. Shamrock is a God's Knight. Back then, he would have just been a regular God's Knight. He wouldn't have been the Supreme Commander. Garling was still the Supreme Commander back then because Saturn was still alive, right? So he had a high position in the God's Knights, and then Shanks was also a member of the Four Emperors. So that kind of applies to both of them. They said, you've come a long way to meet with us, or you've traveled a long way to meet with us. That could also kind of apply to both of them. The only question I always have with that is the way that the Gorosei acted was sort of like, it's unusual for a member of the God's Knights to meet with the Gorosei. That was like the implication. It was weird to have that meeting if it was Shamrock. And I feel like if there's anybody that would probably have semi-regular meetings with the Gorosei from below, it would probably be the God's Knights. Hell, man, Sakazuki, who's the Fleet Admiral of the Marines, which is like the highest position in the Marines, but ironically, it's like, where does Sakazuki rank on the scale? Let's find out. All right, Imu's number 1, provided there's no other, like, there's an emptier throne on top of the empty throne. But no, Imu's on top at number 1. Gorosei are, all of the Gorosei, I'm just going to say flat number 2, okay? Like, all of them are kind of equal status. They're number 2. Directly below the Gorosei would be the Supreme Commander of the God's Knights, which would have been Garling, now would be Shamrock. So Shamrock kind of ranks number 3 right now in terms of, like, world government hierarchy. Just kind of keep that in mind. Then rank 4 would, I guess, be the rest of the God's Knights. Like just the God's Knights in general, because they rank higher than regular Celestial Dragons. That would be 4. Then we would have the regular Celestial Dragons, 5. Then we would have, I guess, Kong, who's the Supreme Commander of the world government, like the Commander-in-Chief of the world government. So we'll have 6 for Kong. And then I guess Sakazuki would be 7 in that regard as Fleet Admiral of the Marines. Because Kong controls Marines, Cypherpole, and used to be the the Warlords, okay, then the SSG. So, like, yeah. So I guess Sakazuki's rank 7. Good job. But that's my point. Sakazuki was shown meeting with the Gorosei. So the Fleet Admiral meeting with the Gorosei is not some kind of, like, absurd thing. Like, you're so far beneath us, we would never deign to meet with you. That happens. It seems to happen fairly often. You know what I mean? Like Sakazuki was not standing there like, whoa, this never happens, an audience with the Gorosei. Like that, that seems to be a common thing that occurs semi-regularly. So you'd assume the God's Knights would also be meeting with the Gorosei every now and then to be given their orders. Who do you think ordered Shamrock and Gunko to go to Elbaf? I don't think they just unilaterally decided that on their own. I don't think Kong or Sakazuki could order them. I don't think they have a high enough authority to do that. So the only people that have the authority to order them around, considering, Shamrock is now the Supreme Commander of the God's Knights, would be a Gorosei member or would be Imu. So it would make sense that Garling would have been the one to order them to go to Elbaf, which means they meet or at least are in contact with the Gorosei. So I am still thinking, this individual that we saw meeting with the Gorosei, that is still Shanks. That is Shanks. I think it makes way more sense for that to be Shanks. But let me know what you think. That's the whole idea. But Oda could be doing that. Like, oh, you thought it was Shanks, but now Shamrock, but it could still be Shanks. Let's talk about names and appearance here for a little bit, okay? Shamrock and Shanks. The names are similar. At least it has the same beginning of it, all right? So that would make sense if Garling named both of them when they were born, like if they were twins, like you will be Shamrock and you will be Shanks. I wonder who was, if they are twins, I wonder who's like slightly older, like who was born first. I'm curious on who's the younger brother and the big brother here, okay? If they are truly just normal twins. If they're clones, obviously Shanks would be older, but yeah. So that could be a situation there. Maybe they're both clones. Maybe they're not even born naturally. Maybe they were both just clones from Garling. That would actually make a little bit more sense, right? They also, it might also make sense on why they all have the same kind of sword that they use. Yeah, what if they are just straight up clones? And it's like they're basically three Garlings walking around, okay? It's just, the only difference is in the way that they were raised. So Shanks is a little different, but he still has the like natural, like, because he's Garling's clone, he still has like, oh yeah, this kind of sword right here. This is my preferred blade. This is my preferred weapon. Then again, Roger used the same kind of weapon as well. And, you know, and like that's why Shanks began to like, oh, I want to use a sword similar to Ace, and so that's why he's using Griffin, okay? So I guess that makes sense there, although it is fascinating that they all wield the same relative kind of sword. I'm also assuming that Shamrock's sword is a Saijo Awazumono graded blade, just because we got to start filling those out. I hope it's called Phoenix. I hope we have Shanks with Griffin and then Shamrock with Phoenix. That would be great. Or it could be something from like Celtic mythology. That would be cool. We could name it something and call it Celtic mythology there. That'd be fun. Also, the fact that his facial hair, I love, is kind of the same as Shanks. So, like, even though they've been separated for so long, whatever the connection is between them, I love how they still have the scruff, okay? Except the only thing is, I gotta say, I like Shamrock's hair way better than Shanks. Like, the flowing hair with the braid, I think it just works, okay? It really works. The, like, aristocratic, like, French nobility outfit thing he's wearing with, like, the shin guards, like, the lower half is, like, the armored leggings or whatever they're called, and then the sword strapped to the side. I mean, he just looks like a boss. And he is. He's the boss of the Gods Knight, so, man, he looks like a boss, though, okay? So let me know down below, I guess, who do you want to see Shamrock fight, okay? But also, like, more than just fighting, like, we're going to find out more about the history here of the Figarland family and everything and how this leads into whatever. But the way this is set up is there's going to be more to Shamrock than meets the eye, okay? There's going to be more to Shamrock than just, like, I was raised by the Celestial Dragons. I'm an evil version of Shanks, and that's my entire backstory. Have at you! Like, that's true, but there's more to it than that, because that's kind of boring, to just be like, I'm the evil version of Shanks, and then Shanks fights him, and then Shanks kills him, and it's like, goodbye, brother. And that's it? That's lame. There's got to be other stuff going on here, okay? If he was a contender to find the One Piece, there's got to be something to his character in the same way all those other characters on that list were shown to have a backstory that we care about. You know, Sabo was there, Kobe was there, Kuzan was there, Sakazuki was there. We still don't know about Sakazuki's backstory. All of the emperors were there. You know, we know a lot about Buggy and Blackbeard and Luffy and Shanks. I'm going to be learning more about Shanks as we go about this. But, like, you know, we got to basically, the thing is, give him a lot of character development coming up, because he's kind of a late arrival to this party, as it were. Like, Kobe's been here since, like, chapter 2, okay? Shamrock's making his debut in chapter 1136. So we gotta give him something coming up here on exactly where that is going. But, yeah, that is just my initial video on Shamrock. My initial thoughts on the man, reading out some theories and stuff I've been seeing online. Really fascinating times to be a One Piece fan. I'm really pumped for this character. Let me know what you feel about him down below. And we are now going to be leading into Tree Facts. Letter Y, we only got 2 left. Man, took me, what, like 2-3 years to get through all of Animal Facts. Only took me like 3 months to get through Tree Facts. You know, I can be very efficient when I need to be. All right, so with the letter Y, I felt like I had to go with the U tree. That's right, the old U tree. Well, in RuneScape, you need about a 60 wood cutting to cut down this sumbitch right here. It's a pretty high-level tree, to be honest with you. But, hey, you yield 175 XP per log, so if, you know, you calculate that out with math, and it's a certain amount of XP per hour. I don't know. Pretty useful for fletching and fire making to level those skills up. You could also use it for farming, though. Farming's fun. Or you could just sell the logs. I think the current going on the Grand Exchange is like 160 gold per U-logs. You could also fletch them into longbows and use the high alchemy thing, or you could sell them that way, usually in decent demand. That's a yew tree right there. No, okay, so the European yew, Taxus baccata. It's an evergreen tree. It's extraordinarily poisonous. It's very toxic to humans and other animals. The only part of the tree that is not horribly toxic to animals is these bright red berries that it's kind of growing off of it. Those are okay, but every other part of the tree is toxic and can lead to breathing difficulties, heart failure, and death. So I can kind of see now why the yew tree is one of the higher ranked trees in RuneScape. You got to be careful cutting that thing. You don't want to die accidentally. They can grow up to over 2,000 years, you know, in terms of length, so they're very old trees. Even when they are very old, new parts can grow out of them, so they continue to, like, regenerate there. Strong, elastic, durable trees that can be used to make longbows. Oh, hey, that's an actual thing. All right, they can be used to make pretty decent longbows. Back in, like, the old school battles in England and stuff like that. There is a chemical that this tree produces called paclitaxel. Okay. It makes an actual medicine called Taxol, which is used for chemotherapy treatments. So it's a chemical that's used in, like, cancer treatments and things like that. So that's actually pretty cool. And finally, it would be planted in, like, churchyards for, like, Christian denominations. Like, Christian churchyards would have these trees because they are supposed to, like, protect and guard over the dead as, like, a symbolic thing. All right. Well, that's the yew tree. Hope you guys enjoyed. Next time, last episode of Tree Facts. Crazy. All right. Later, everybody. Have a Shamrock day.